What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Hope you're having a good Friday. It's the last day of work before the weekend for a lot of people. Let me know what you guys are playing this weekend. I'm actually really curious to see what people are going to be playing this weekend. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Monster and a lot of Dragon Ball Z down there. But hey, maybe some people are playing some Xenoblade, which is something I'm going to be playing because I'm going to give you guys my thoughts this weekend on what I think about Xenoblade after 100 hours of gameplay, because I am right at that mark, so we're going to go over that. But we have a lot of stuff to go through today, including, believe it or not, a demo, or at least a benchmark for Final Fantasy 15 came out. I ran it, so I have a few results for that. Should be interesting. And then we finally got a release date for Red Dead Redemption 2, one of the most anticipated games of the year, and it's not exactly when you would think. So let's get started. Now, Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably a lot of people's most anticipated title for 2018. I'm sure there's a lot of people who also look forward to like Madden and Call of Duty, series that you know come out every year, FIFA, but we've known at this point Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out sometime this year. They told us, remember they told us the window of spring, so a lot of us were like, okay, it's probably coming out sometime between, say, March and June, somewhere in there. A lot of us were thinking April, May at the latest. Well, it's October. I know, right? That's definitely spring. Now, it got moved to the fall, so it's actually coming out October 26th of this year, 2018, and this was shown to us by Rockstar on their Twitter account. Twitter exploded, retweets, favorites, likes everywhere. It was all over Twitter because people want Red Dead Redemption 2 sequel so badly. It's of course not coming to the PC, still one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Big miss by Rockstar, I think, there, but it is coming to the Xbox One and the PS4, and of course the Xbox One X is here just in time for that game. I think that I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is really going to benefit from the X, because I think the Pro may struggle with it at times from what we're seeing with how good this game looks and how expansive it is, but it'll be fun to see some of the benchmarks there. And of course, if you're EA, if you're Activision, you are not happy right now. You are really annoyed, because the idea I think they had in their boardrooms, or their war rooms, if you want to call them, is, okay, Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out in spring. They've said that. We don't have to worry about it in the holiday season, right? They can get they can take over spring. We don't really care that much. We'll throw a game or two here, here and there out. And you know what? It'll probably be overshadowed by Red Dead Redemption 2, but now that we know a new Battlefield's coming from EA, and it's probably going to come out sometime in October, I can't imagine they're thrilled about one of the biggest games in the past couple of years probably coming out right up alongside Battlefield. That cannot feel good at all. Anything I'm sure Activision's been planning for the holiday season, Ubisoft, there's a lot of companies that just probably saw this and got really frustrated, because yes, Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to be that type of game. It's going to come out, and we already know it's probably going to be a massive experience like Grand Theft Auto. So people are probably going to buy that and be set for a little while, a month or two, to be honest. I'm sure some will still go out and buy some of the other games, but we've seen it before. Wolfenstein 2 got completely run over by games around it. So, I mean, Assassin's Creed came out on the same day and did much better. Wolfenstein 2 fell down the sales charts because there were just bigger games that overshadowed them. So I would expect that from Red Dead Redemption 2. This certainly throws a big monkey wrench into all of these other publishers' ideas and plans. Call of Duty is still going to be popular, but hey, Red Dead Redemption 2 came out 2 weeks ago. Maybe I'll get that instead. That will be the mindset of people walking into GameStop, going on Amazon, walking into Best Buy. They have to make a decision. Not everyone can buy every game, and I see why some people might buy Red Dead Redemption 2 instead, because it's going to have online, and it's going to have a full single player. So it seems like the value is there for the $60. Let me know what you guys think about this release date. Do you think it is a bad thing for some of these publishers that Red Dead Redemption 2 got seemingly moved? And are you frustrated that it's not coming out in the spring? Because I saw people who weren't happy that it's getting, I guess, delayed. I mean, they're putting it, don't pull an EA here, right? It's getting pushed into the future, but it's not a delay, right? No, it is technically a delay. They told us spring, it's coming out in the fall. At least they didn't give us a date before. So let me know what you guys think about this release date. Are you happier that it's coming out in the fall? It gives you some time to get some money saved up, or maybe get a PS4 or an Xbox One in this case. Next up, let's talk a bit about Capcom's financials that they did release the other day. It got overshadowed by everything else that was going on. But Capcom put out numbers the other day, and then they followed up earlier yesterday as well with more numbers about things like Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, Street Fighter, all of these different games. Yes, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was in there, and it's not doing well if you're asking, but let's take a look at some of the numbers they put out, because some of them are pretty impressive, and I think at this point Capcom understands the worth of the Switch. I think it's taken at least a year for a lot of these publishers and developers to see that the Switch is a good platform to put games on and things will sell here, because some of the numbers you're going to see are pretty impressive for the little system. So the first one we're going to talk about is Resident Evil Revelation. Specifically, to talk about the ports. It seems to be, I guess, because they sold the first one and then let people download the second one, they just said Biohazard Liberations, or in this case, Resident Evil Revelations, sold 500,000 units. I guess that would be shipped, but they still got their money for them to retailers. In this case, though, about half of that was on the Switch. So 250,000 of the Switch, 250,000 that were then split up between the PS4 and the Xbox One in this case. And according to them, it was split up 100,000 copies Japan, 270,000 overseas, and then the remaining 130,000 were just downloaded versions, is what they said. They also went on further to talk about Resident Evil 7, how it's shipped at this point, 4.8 million units. They seem to talk about Marvel vs. Capcom as being very soft when it came to sales, as it seemed to just now cross 1 million shipped. That's right, guys. This is the game that was on Steam, Xbox One, and the PS4. This is a massive install base, and they just now shipped 1 million units. That's not good for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, not good for the series, although I do think Capcom should have spent more time on it and put more money into it and built it really better. As people have pointed out, it was built on a shoestring budget, and animations, visuals, it doesn't look very good. But of course, Capcom was more than happy to tout how well Monster Hunter World has done, and it has done very, very well. They have shipped 5 million units. That is real. They did definitely did kind of target this towards the West, as we figured. So it makes a lot of sense why Monster Hunter World had, I guess, just over 1 million in Japan, but I'm very curious to see what these US numbers are going to be. Overall, Capcom had an okay quarter. Definitely has been saved so far by Monster Hunter, which is something they keep talking about, how Monster Hunter is doing great. You know, get ready for when we have to show you revenue numbers for the quarter coming up, where we're going to have continuous Monster Hunter sales. Either way, I have a feeling that stuff like Revelations is going to start making them believe more in the Switch, which means you'll probably see more ports, of course. I think something like Okami is obvious at this point, right? They're doing all the Mega Man stuff. That's all going to the Switch. And we'll probably see more stuff from them going forward. Will they bring something like Resident Evil 7 over? I don't know. We keep hearing about how they were developing it at some point. They probably still are if they are bringing it over. And that might be something that shows up in like a Nintendo Direct, or maybe it just gets announced randomly. I mean, Revelations 1 and 2 just got announced randomly. Do you remember that? It was a press release that just went out and said, hey, Revelations is showing up on the Switch and the other systems, so get ready. Yeah, that could be something with Resident Evil 7, although I feel like Nintendo might want to make a bigger deal about that, maybe throw that in a Direct somewhere. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the Nintendo Labo. That's the cardboard box that they sell you for 80 bucks. I'm just kidding. Listen, the Labo is not for everyone. I've made that very clear. It's probably not for me, but it's for other people. I can see this being very, very interesting to a lot of 10, 12-year-olds, right? Very interesting, maybe 8-year-olds. But here's the thing. There was something they didn't really show us. They did, but they kind of glossed over it. And apparently a lot of these events that Nintendo is holding, where a parent and their kids can go to these events, try it out, something was kind of been found here, specifically at the New York City event. It seems like you're going to have the ability to do some very basic programming around the Labo, which really kind of took me by surprise here, because this could actually open up the doors for some very interesting ideas that come out of these, well, cardboard boxes. This is a quick excerpt from Kotaku, where they talked about it a bit so you can get an idea, saying, at an event in New York this afternoon, Nintendo representatives demonstrated this Toy-Con Garage, which uses simple building blocks to let you program your devices. They're essentially if-then statements. When you open up the program, you can select from a number of blocks based on input options for your Switch's controllers, then connect them to other blocks based on output options. For example, you connect the left Switch controller's B button, the input, to the right Switch controller's vibration feature, output, so whenever you press the B button on the left Joy-Con, the right Joy-Con will buzz. All right, this is actually pretty cool. This is a great way to get people kind of in the basics of really figuring out how to design and program. This could really get people set up. Again, it's kind of like an if-then statement, where if somebody pressed this button, this action will happen, else, go on to the next command or do this. I don't think they'll get that far into it, but the fact that you can basically remap functions of these buttons to do different things means you're going to be able to do more with them than originally thought. Different things, people who are very creative should be able to come up with all kinds of ideas. Like, I'm sure you guys could probably come up with a bunch in the comments now, things that I'm probably not even thinking of, but the fact that you can just say, all right, this B button is now going to make this vibrate, or I don't even know how most of this stuff will work until I actually get to put it together and try it, since they're going to use like tape and infrared and everything. I'm curious how really deep they're going to get with this, essentially reprogramming parts. Now, what's cool is the way they make that work. They showed the two squares, and you connect really basically a line depending on where you want it to go. So it's very visual. You're not typing anything out. And that's, again, a great way to visualize how things like True Basic would have worked back when I was in high school. I kind of wish I had something like this that was, well, more visual instead of codes of like lines of code. I had basically something I could kind of move around. I know Visual Basic was a thing then too, but they gave us True Basic and said start typing. I would have rather been drawing lines, in this case between blocks. Either way, this is really cool, and this could end up in schools, to be honest. People could actually take these and use them in public schools to teach really the basics and the ideas, since you can visualize them, of programming. And I wouldn't be surprised if classrooms, honestly, start using these just for fun and cool little projects to get people interested in this kind of stuff. Next up, let's jump back to EA for a minute. We've talked about them the past couple days. They had their conference call. They showed pretty large earnings overall, because they still get a lot from people who play FIFA. A lot of money goes into that game, believe it or not. I'm sure people can believe it with the kind of microtransactions and how popular it was on YouTube for people to open like player packs and everything. Very popular. But here's the thing. You would think that they would have learned their lesson from Battlefront 2, right? They figure, okay, it was clear people didn't want the microtransactions, and they are essentially responding by not buying the game. Instead, they're going in the complete opposite direction. So here's what's happening. They are bringing microtransactions back. They've pretty much doubled down on it. They said, you know, we believe in microtransactions. They're absolutely coming back to Battlefront 2 in some way. I hope they don't interfere with progression. I think they'll be cosmetic, hopefully. But it seems like instead of, I guess, making them rethink their strategy with microtransactions, they have now been reinforced, because not only did they go ahead and announce that they're coming back, saying they believe in them, wholeheartedly believe in these microtransactions, their stock continues to rise. It has now risen to, like, seriously, the most they've ever seen at this point. It's crazy. Investors, by the way, love microtransactions, because microtransactions equals money. And here's the thing that EA this is their line of thought here. We were going to come in under expectations if we left the microtransactions in. We took the microtransactions out. We still came in under expectations. So we should have just left the microtransactions in. Honestly, I kind of agree with them there, because what would have sold any worse? They still missed their mark. They still missed it by 1 million units. If they had left them in, maybe they miss it by 2 million units, but they make money on the microtransactions. So that really, from their point of view, they couldn't win either way, and they're just going to go the route that brings them the most money. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like what most gamers want, but hey, money, right? And our last bit of news, let's talk a bit about Final Fantasy 15 on the PC. It's coming up pretty quickly now. And they provided us with a benchmarking tool. This is kind of neat. So if you're not sure if your PC can play the game, they give you a way so you can find out, essentially. It's a program you take. It benchmarks your hardware to tell you how well will this run. It gives you a score, a numbered score you can check. It also shows you your frame rate throughout. How is it doing? You can also turn in your own frame rate program. And what's cool here is it appears to run okay on mid-range computers, better than I thought. Remember that Optiplex I built a while ago that has an i7 and a GTX 970 in it? I benchmarked it. It's, if you want to download it, by the way, it's like a 4 gigabyte file. You download it, you unpack it, you run it. And I got much better results than I thought I would get. Here is the screenshot here of my results, 6,153, and the entire time it was hovering around 60 frames per second. This was at 1080p, and it was sitting at standard settings, but still, 60 frames per second on that game looks great. I really wish the PS4 and the Xbox One were able to get to that point, because I'm telling you, it is eye-opening how much different that game looks, rather than going from a 25 to 30 frames per second stuttering kind of mess at times on the PS4 and the Xbox One, and you go to this really smooth 60 frames per second. Wow, it looks great, but I would try it yourself, especially if you're interested in the game, because it'll tell you how it runs. Just keep in mind, I was able to get 60 frames per second with a GTX 970 that's considered, at this point, mid-range, so you should have a decent time if you have like a GTX 1060 or up, and at least an i5, you should have no problem running 1080p, 60 frames at decent settings. You could try for high, but honestly, standard looked pretty good for me, and I mean, it was running super smooth, and that's honestly why I won it on the PC outside of the modding scene, because 60 frames per second with that game looked great. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about Red Dead Redemption 2 because you're excited. Maybe you like where the release date falls in October right at the end. Or maybe you're annoyed because now it's just another game I got to buy in the fall with probably all these other games, a new Battlefield, a new Call of Duty, Madden. You know, maybe you like to buy all of those yearly installments of those games. Then here's Battlefield that's not quite a yearly series showing up. And you're like, I gotta buy probably like 4 games in like a 3-week span now. That's quite a bit of money. Also, let me know what you think about this Final Fantasy 15 demo. Maybe you tried it. Let me know what your results are down there with your video card so we can get an idea of, I guess, how this is running on different hardware setups. Should be interesting to see how this goes over when it releases. Also, like I said, let me know what you guys are playing this weekend. I'm curious. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.